reason you chose them.
Yes. Yes.
There's a really good reason you chose them. There's a reason why you stayed with them. And there's a reason you're talking shit about them now. It's all coming from a place of pain within you that you need to look at and heal.
What's up, guys? It's your boy Jalen. We're here on another episode of Elev8ted Minds, and we've got a special guest for you here today. We've got Miss Melissa. Hey, we're going to talk everything about toxic relationships. We're going to talk about abusive relationships and how to, identify it and how to get out. If that's what, you're in, we want to be able to give you tools that you can be able to navigate and have a healthy, happy life with a happy, healthy relationship, because everyone deserves that. So we'll just have Melissa just to introduce herself a little bit and tell a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. My specialty area is trauma and relationships, and I have a history of I'm a military veteran, which is why I chose this field after I got out, because damn, those relationships are fucked up. And honestly, it's a big reason why I believe that there's so many suicides in the military, in the veteran community, first responders. So that's why I like to dig into the hard stuff. I like getting my hands dirty and helping people kind of break those toxic cycles and stuff, because it's really all kind of just, believe it or not, rooted in their childhood, unfortunately.
Yeah. I love that. And when it comes to toxic relationships, I want to get your definition on it, because, a lot of people have different definitions, going by their, what they think that it is. But, by your experience and by your expertise, what would you say makes a relationship toxic?
Dang, good question. Because, I like to always flip it back on the other person of well, what do you think is toxic? But yeah. A lot of their definitions of it being toxic are things that they just saw on social media, or what their friends are saying. They don't I encourage people to kind of explore within them, all right, well, if you think your relationship is toxic, what is it about it that makes it toxic? But basically, in a nutshell, for me, it's key identifiers. Can you be yourself in your relationship? Do you feel like you're walking on eggshells? That's kind of the gist of it. Do you feel like you can say anything to your partner and they'll understand you and support you?
Right.
Or do you feel like you kind of have to put on a show or be a certain way to be loved? Or do you feel like you have to kind of always distance yourself to keep it from blowing up and protect the relationship that way? So that's kind of how I view toxic relationships. And it's kind of on a spectrum of you got a little bit toxic here and there, all the way to oh yeah, to nah, you should probably get out. For your own safety kind of thing. So that's kind of my definition.
I always hear people say they've been with a toxic relationship or in a toxic relationship, but I've also heard people say it was abusive. He might have not been toxic, but it was more abusive, or he might have been more abusive and not so much toxic. Is there a difference between toxic or abusive, or do they overlap, or
Yeah, I think it really depends on the definition of whatever language people are speaking, because I think they can kind of be interchangeable, and it really boils down to how the person feels about the other person, I think, maybe. Because it's how much resentment has built up towards that person, and where's the blame getting placed too. I think that's huge, because the people who are being abused might be placing the blame on themselves, whereas the toxic relationship, they could be putting more blame on their partner, and that's where the labels like narcissist and all that stuff come into play, of kind of disowning what's going on and not taking ownership of what am I doing to contribute to this? Not saying that abuse or toxicity is right, but it's definitely takes two to tango, for sure. And unfortunately, it's usually on the subconscious level that this is happening. It's not really a choice that you're making.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's, I like that you said that because there's moments, when I was in toxic relationships and I would try to figure out like, what's going on? How did I get here? And it's always like pointing the finger, like you just said. And it got to the point where I'm like, okay, well, I got to figure out, there's got to be something that I've done to track this, or why can't I seem to, just step away? But I'll ask this question. So when was the moment that you realized that you were in a toxic relationship? Like, what was the moment where you realized it?
Yeah. Well, first, let me go back to what you just said too. The second you start asking those questions of like, what am I doing? But like asking it from like a really curious place, not from like, fuck, what am I doing? Like, how am I getting this wrong every time I'm failing? Like, not coming from that place, but I'm talking about like, damn, like, what is really going on here? Let me start like actually looking at myself. That's when healing starts.
Yeah.
That is the first step into it, because
wow,
you're now zooming out and like getting curious, like almost like a researcher, observer, like, let me see what's happening. But for me, well, in a nutshell, it all boils down to cycles. That's how these toxic relationships happen. And it's a cycle. It doesn't start that way.
Right.
Yeah, some couples, they do start that way, but most don't. Like, you meet, everything's great, fine and dandy. Like the relationship I had. I'll talk about a relationship that I had in my really early 20s in the military. I was stationed in Germany. Could drink when you're like 18. Actually, I was like 18, 19. I wasn't 20 yet. So we'd get like shit-faced drunk every weekend. I worked like 2 to 10 p.m. So it was just like party every night. I'd get home at like 4 a.m. and sleep until it was time to go to work. It was nice at the time. But because I come from an upbringing with like a lot of kids in my family, there's 7 other kids in my family, brothers and sisters. And so naturally, people, not necessarily all big families, but I definitely had some daddy issues, meaning my dad, great guy. However, very emotionally disconnected. And like, I was craving that attention and like, just see me. And so naturally, I just started looking for that in guys, other guys. And I didn't really know what I was looking for. And I'm linking this to my childhood because that's where it starts, guys, like for real. Like,
yes.
You gotta look, even if you think you had a great childhood, if you're noticing bad patterns in your relationship, it definitely is coming from your childhood or a significant trauma in your life. But so in that relationship, the first sign that is going to be toxic is I saw this dude walking. It's the first time I saw him. I was like, oh my God, he's so hot. Like, I want to make him my boyfriend. That's the first. Like, I want him.
Right.
That's where
you were ready.
I don't even know this dude, but it's like all physical stuff. And it's like, there's something about it that I'm drawn to, that I want. And from that point on, it was like, my goal was just like, get him, just like have him as my boyfriend. He was one of the biggest, I don't want to say players, but kind of. It was because he was like one of the hottest dudes in the squadron or whatever. And I was like, yeah, I want that guy.
Like, this is the one right here.
Yeah. And so got him. I did get him. However, he cheated on me like crazy. I turned into a total psychopath with him. Like, he would go out to clubs and not text me for hours. And like, I would like literally be hanging my head out my window of my dorm, like looking to see if he was getting back into his dorm, like what time. It would be like 4 a.m.
Wow.
Still couldn't, he wouldn't come home, wouldn't respond. Yeah, I turned into a total psycho. Because of and this boils down to like attachment styles. My attachment style is anxious, meaning it's like when I'm with someone, I naturally struggle to be myself around them. Like me showing up authentically as myself is somehow not enough. And that this looks like I'm not pretty enough, or like there's something missing about me. I need to be hotter, smarter, whatever it is. And then when I was 18, 19, that's what it was. It's like I made sure like legs always shaved, like looking as good as I could, liking his sports team. I don't even care about sports. But yeah, so in a nutshell, that's like how you start to know it's toxic, when you're feeling like you don't feel safe in your relationship. Like you don't trust if they go out, you can't trust that they're not going to do something. You're feeling like anxious all the time about something's going to happen in the relationship. So at least that's on the anxious side.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about other attachment styles.
A little bit further in.
Yeah, but likely men typically are like on the opposite side. Not always, but they're on the opposite side of avoidant attachment, which makes the anxious ones go crazy. Yeah.
Right. So it's like that back and forth polarity, like the push and pull.
Yeah, exactly. Totally.
Wow. And I think that's so interesting because, I feel like before, and I heard that you can even change your attachment styles. I'm not sure how true that is, but I feel like
you can.
Okay, so that is a real thing, because
it's fluid.
So before I dealt with a lot of my childhood stuff, I was very anxious, like very, want to know what's going on 24/7 and all that type of stuff. And I feel like now I've kind of healed myself, and I've gotten to more of a secure attachment style, which we could talk more about that later. But I just think it's interesting because a lot of times in relationships, I don't think people understand anything about attachment styles, and so there might be two people in this, they just can't understand why there's so much of a back and forth polarity, and it's like, wow, you guys are like, you're over here, and you guys are like
they feed off each other too, because like when one pulls away, the other one gets more anxious. The more anxious the other one becomes, the more the other one pulls away, because it's like smothering.
Wow.
So it's like if you don't intervene when that cycle comes alive, it could get real ugly. And I can see, and this kind of leads into like the juicy stuff. It's like I can see like so easily how it can escalate to violence, how it can escalate to escaping through addiction, whether it's like gambling, porn, alcohol, whatever. Home's no longer safe, or the relationship's no longer safe. So you have to find ways to like if you're gonna stay in that, which sucks, but like people stay for a lot of good reasons.
Yeah.
Some people like, they weigh the pros and cons. If you're gonna stay in that, like something's got to give. So it ends up you fall short in certain areas, and you overcompensate through sometimes like the most unhealthy ways.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask again, because I know some of the viewers might want to know. You said something about toxic cycles. So what would be an example of a toxic cycle in that type of a relationship?
Ooh, yeah. This is my bread and butter.
Oh yeah.
because looking at the cycles actually really gets to the root of the problem. I learned different types of therapy for treating couples, because I was like, I need to know how to really do this shit right. I don't want them to come back, or if they do come back, it'll be like not the same problems all over again. So most couples fight talking about something like the bills or like kids or whatever, but they don't realize like the cycle looks the same every time they argue. It's just like on different intensity levels. So for example, perfect example is like a typical fight between like a husband and wife, for example, of like the wife goes up, sees the husband on the couch after dinner, and she's like, looks at the dishes in the sink, and she's like, walks over to the couch, can you help me with the dishes? And he's like, oh my God, I finally got home from work. I'm trying to just chill for 5 minutes. And he's like, fuck it, fine, I'll help you do dishes. Then she's like, no. I'm like, I'm an actress, by the way. No. It's like, no, I don't want you to help me because I want you to want to do the dishes, just like that movie.
Oh, I know exactly which one.
Yeah. So, man, if we broke down that movie, I could tell you exactly what's going on. But, and so in therapy, for example, like we slow that whole scene down because it happens so fast. But it's so quick. But it can happen so frequently in relationship. These little like tiny. It doesn't even have to be that dramatic. It could just be like, can you go get something from the store on your way home? And then it's like, sorry, I missed it. And then they get home, and then the wife reacts like, I've been home all day, blah 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 blah. And it's just like those little like tense moments.
Yeah.
But basically, what a cycle looks like is like when the wife saw him sitting on the couch, it did something to her. It activated or triggered her in some way that is likely linked to something from childhood. Right. She's not aware of this though. So there's something about him sitting on the couch that just like, if we actually broke that down fully, it would likely be something like, I feel alone in this.
Wow.
So she goes to let him know, but she doesn't identify with the alone feelings. She's identifying with her anger, which is just protecting her from feeling vulnerable and alone. She goes up to him with the anger and says, can you help me with the dishes, with that tone, which is the trigger for him of like the tone. She's being so controlling, is what he's going to pick it up as, like, yeah. And I feel trapped, or I feel like a failure. All she ever does is point out everything that I'm not doing right. And he's going to respond from that place. And then they go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I'm alone. I feel unseen, unloved. Then on his side, it's like, you're controlling. You don't let me have space. I can't do anything right. I'm a failure. And so at the root of every conflict between this couple, it looks like that, no matter what they're talking about.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it literally just carry on to different, it could be different parts of the day, different, it might not be about the dishes today. It could be something totally different, but it's kind of the same formula.
Yeah, like for example, in my relationship, like because I've done a lot of healing work too, I'm definitely more on the secure side now. I still have like anxious tendencies just because it's like kind of where I naturally gravitate to in moments, like actually by habit a lot of times. But yeah. So for example, for the longest time, like my husband, he plays video games every night. He's a stay-at-home dad. So that's his like chill time. He plays till like 3 a.m. And for years I was like, can you just come to bed with me? And he'll say like, I don't fall asleep that early. Like, sorry. Right. So I'm in bed feeling alone and rejected even, or abandoned. Yeah. Not knowing that I'm feeling this way. I'm just mad. And then he is like, I don't know why she doesn't understand why I can't go to sleep at that time. Like I feel so controlled, or I'm failing her. And so he'll come in to sleep like for a while. This is before we figured it out. We're good now. But yeah. So before he'll like be like, okay, fine. You want me to sleep in bed with you? I'll sleep in bed with you 2 nights a week. And then, and this is what guys do, unfortunately, a lot of times, not just guys, but mostly guys. They're like, just give me the playbook. Just tell me what I need to do to fix this. Right. And like check off the box so I can do my thing. And then they end up doing exactly what they're told to do. And it's still not enough. And it's because they're not addressing the emotional root of where her concern or questions are coming from.
Wow. So I mean, it really sounds like that's literally like how a lot of relationships, I guess maybe rifts can form if you guys don't find those solutions and those common grounds. It sounds like that can really continue the cycle, and that's really what a lot, I guess, happens in a lot of relationships unknowingly.
Yeah.
They're just going through it like day after day after day.
Right. And it's so heartbreaking because like these couples love each other. The reason they're fighting so strongly is because of how much they love each other. Otherwise they wouldn't give a shit. They would just leave.
That's really true.
And so it's like, it's how they learn to love, that's how they're showing up. And they may not really even know what a safe relationship looks like. Because I never knew you could actually be friends with someone you're dating. I literally never crossed my mind. I thought it was purely sexual, like just driven by lust.
Yeah.
Like, that's literally what I thought it was. And then when I met my husband now, I'm like, it blew my mind that you could actually be friends and like have a best friend in a relationship. Because I'd never seen that. Like my parents are still together today, but I never really saw, they worked a lot. I never really saw their relationship close up. So I kind of was just guessing. And that's why I read a lot of Cosmopolitan growing up. I stole my sister's magazines. So that's what shaped my view of relationships, is like, you are you lure them in with your, being desirable. And that it really sucks because it robbed me of my authentic self at a really young age, and like building that confidence within me and stepping into my power, I guess you could say. Because I gave my power to the guy that was gonna choose me or not. So yeah.
That brought up another question. When you look back on the relationships, you can see them, like the different early sites of red flags. When I look back on my toxic relationship that I was in before, I can see, wow, I know like exact turning moments, like turning point moments where I'm like, oh, I definitely should have left in this moment right here. Like when I seen this type of behavior, I definitely should have ran for the hills, but I didn't. And it the same thing that you ignore, it usually is the thing that blows up in the end.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
But for some of the viewers that might be dealing with a toxic relationship or even abusive and might not even know it's there yet, what are some of the early red flags that you could spot?
So this is the challenge with like the logical mind and the emotional side, the unconscious and the conscious kind of thing. Because consciously and logically you would know a red flag, but it gets filtered through the emotional lens, it gets skewed. Like if you've ever had a friend that's been in abusive relationships like over and over and over, and you're like, why do you keep choosing these people? They're not actually consciously choosing them. It's a subconscious program, and they are likely viewing that person as someone who can redeem them, or they can prove themselves to them. If I can just get them to love me, then it'll heal my little inner child. Or if I can just get them to stay, or if I can just fix them.
That's the big one.
Oh yeah. Or like, those kind of things. But the red flags, it's like when you look back on a relationship, you're like, oh my God, how could I be so stupid? And a lot of my clients come in like that, like my individual clients. And like, if you place yourself back there in the same situation again, you would do the exact same thing all over again, most likely, because you didn't view it as a red flag at the time.
Right.
That's true. You did have an intuition that you ignored.
Ignored it.
It's very subtle sometimes, or you're misreading the sign as something else. Like, for example, in my relationship where I had a major red flag, that I didn't ignore it. And I think this is a big thing. Like, I don't really think people truly ignore them. I think they adapt to them. So, like,
Wow.
in that one relationship where the dude's cheating on me all the time, he was out at a club super late, and I'm like freaking out. He comes home at like 4 a.m. and I confront him, and he just like writes me off like he always does. Like minimizing kind of thing, like whatever, blah blah blah. He's drunk. He's taking a shower, and I just had a hunch. I was like, I freaking know he did something. So I'm like sniffing his clothes, like that level.
Yeah, like going through the whole nine.
Oh yeah. I'm like stiff, and I saw stuff, like I just knew something was off. That's my intuition. So I go to his car and I rummage through his like glove box or whatever, and there's a pack of condoms. And like,
wow.
We didn't use condoms, so where did that come
right.
from? And then so I go in there and confront him. And it's open, by the way. So it's like all the evidence is there. All the evidence I need is there. I go in there and confront him, and he says it's his friends. He's holding his friend's condom. I kind of believed him for a second. I wanted to believe it so bad because because the way I viewed him was like kind of like my dad. Like my dad didn't treat me like that, but he did make me feel similarly of like, why am I not enough, or what do I need to change so you can actually see me or like me or love me or whatever it is. And so,
or be loyal to me, or
like something. And so because I wanted that so bad, my subconscious mind just like flipped it, and we ended up crying together. It was like that dramatic relationship where you're like bawling your eyes out on the floor, fetal position, like that kind of relationship. And I mean, no one is immune to that. Unless you're very, very securely attached, and not a lot of people are, because people just don't grow up with balanced parents like that typically. So yeah, that's kind of like how, and we stayed together after that. Because then it's like, okay, he makes up for it somehow, like smooths it over, but then it happens again, So yeah, that was a lot of lessons learned from that relationship, but it actually made me a really great therapist now, because I can relate to like all these clients who come in that are, I'm not judging them, because I'm like, dude, been there. I freaking know what you're talking about. I know how you can be a certain way, and it's not the true you.
That just brought something else up, because when I stayed, I didn't stay really long, but I stayed long enough to the point to where when I got out of the relationship, I felt really low self-worth, low sense of self, really messed up my confidence, and really just my identity, who I was, because I felt like I was being someone that I wasn't, trying to appease this person. So it's like, for you, how much does it affect your self-worth by staying in a relationship where it feels like you're getting your self-worth attacked, you're getting your confidence in yourself, diminished? How does that affect you over time?
Yeah, like honestly, worst case scenario, what we see is like suicide, no joke, because in these type of relationships that become really toxic, they're typically like pretty codependent, meaning like the person, they are using each other as an extension of themselves. So like, if you're not happy, I'm not happy, kind of thing. So when they view their partner in that way of like, uh-oh, they're mad at me, or I did something wrong again, I'm in trouble, like those kind of things, your emotions are so tied to that person's emotions about who you are, your sense of self gets distorted, and then you either snap out of it eventually, or you stay in it and just keep like trying to fix it. And there's like a process that happens. I forgot the order in which it happens, I heard it on some podcast. Can't remember who, but they were talking about like at first you might look at yourself as the problem, like trying to fix it. Like, what am I doing wrong? But then the longer it goes on, you start looking at the other person as the problem.
Wow.
Where it's like, all right, well, I fixed all my shit. I don't know why this is still messed up. It's got to be them. And that's actually usually when couples come into therapy. And then the final stage is like, it's our relationship in general. It's just like doomed. There's no fixing this. Like, we got to cut it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I got that third one right, but it's definitely like this process that happens where you look at yourself, you look at the other person. But really what needs to be happening is each person in the relationship has to look at themselves, and because they're individually feeding that cycle.
Wow. And then I guess I'll ask this question. When was the moment that you realized that you had to get out, or you had to end things? So I know that usually there's usually like that moment where you're like, all right, I gotta go. I can't do this no more. Like
so I was one of the ones that just rolled in from relationship to relationship. I was pretty much never single.
Right.
I
had that same thing going on for a while too.
Yeah, like still to this day, I don't think I've ever been single in my adult life.
Yeah.
And that, hence the abandonment thing, the anxious attachment, makes sense that because I was giving my power to the guys I was with, the only way I could establish enough strength to leave, now looking back, was by finding another guy to become that strength for me. Right. So when my ex was going back home, and like to visit family, I didn't go because I was like, I didn't have enough money to get a ticket, and he wasn't going to buy me one. So it was like a blessing in disguise, though. So he goes back home for like the holidays, and then this dude texts me from this class I went to like 6 months prior, and it was like, "Want to hang out?" And I was like, It was like, yeah, I was in this relationship for 2 years. I was cheated on a million times. And like, as this opportunity presented itself, and I never once considered cheating ever. But it's like this opportunity presented, and I was like, So it was like that moment, like the first time I hung out with this guy, it was like my world shifted. And I was like, oh my God, it feels so different. Like I feel so comfortable. And it's not my husband now. But that feels comfortable too. But yeah. And then I ended up telling him that I was seeing someone else. Like it was like maybe 3 weeks or something like that. And we didn't like go too far with it, if you know what I mean. So because I was like, I'm classy in that way. I'm like 20 years old, whatever. So I tell him that I'm leaving the relationship, like I found someone else or whatever that treats me right. I feel good about this, blah, blah, blah. And then this is the moment that I knew I made the right choice, as he said. He said, "Don't worry, you'll come crawling back like you always do."
Wow.
Yeah. And it was pretty wild because he never spoke like that ever. And
really?
I'm sure it was coming from a place of pain within him, but that was like profound. It was like, holy shit. I'm like, that's how he sees me.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
He thinks like, every time you'll be back, guy.
Yeah, because I did. I mean, he wasn't lying, but like luckily I had found someone else to latch to. And I could just easily just wipe him out of my life. Like I didn't even think twice about him ever again. Like I didn't.
Wow.
Like I had the occasional like weird dreams, but otherwise. But I could like just block him out. It was no problem. So that's so evident to me that I didn't actually love him. Like not in the way,
Wow.
not a healthy love, at least. It was the
Yeah.
lust, you know?
The lust, like just the physical attraction and the attachment, but it
Yeah,
wasn't
it was
like
perfect. Attachment is the perfect word. It was a insecure attachment. And then I
mm,
just like went from one to the next. And that relationship looked not the same, but the same.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So that just brought another question pertaining to that. How can someone distinguish the difference? 'Cause I know some people like, oh, I felt so strongly for this person, but at the core of it, it's more lust. It's not actually love. What would you say? How can someone distinguish the difference between the
Mm,
two?
I think love, what it really boils down to, compassion, I guess you could say. Like, if you can view this person and you can see all of them,
Hmm.
including their flaws, and still accept them, um, and desire to be with them, and like think that the things that they think are like ugly or unattractive or whatever are actually like cute or quirky or whatever. um like love is more of like an eternal thing than something you work to achieve. I don't know how to explain it. It's like one of the
Yeah.
hardest questions to define, right? Like, what is
Yeah.
love? But you're right, like you have to be able to see the other person as a whole person, and you don't really see yourself.
Right.
um, you can actually put yourself to the side and your stuff, your trauma, your stuff, like history, whatever, and you just see them for who they truly are, and you still accept them without judgment. Um,
Yeah.
that's kind of how I see love.
Yeah. I think you're right because I feel like love, like you said, you're seeing the whole person. So I mean, you're looking at their good side of them and the flaws, all of that, and still
Yeah,
loving them. Like you're still, that doesn't change how you view them. I
yeah,
feel like when when it can be attachment, it's more out of, I guess it's kind of more out of fear based. It's not really
mm.
so much of, attachment. It can be like, oh, I just don't want to be alone. I'm scared of, facing
Yeah,
myself or, whatever. But love, I feel like it's a little bit more everlasting. It's like a more it's a home cooked meal instead of like fast food.
yeah,
In a
yeah.
way, like
I like that. Yeah, and like the attachment thing, it's the difference between secure attachment and insecure attachment. Um,
mm,
it's like your desire to be with this person is, where is it coming from? Is really the
right.
question. Is it coming from, if I don't have them in my life, I know I'll be okay, but I want them in my life. They're a complement to my life. I want to do life with them as like
Yeah.
a partner. Whereas like the insecure attachment is like, I need them in my life. Like I'll die without them.
Yeah.
It's like, that's
Yeah.
like, you think that that's like it's what we see in movies and stuff, but it's not healthy,
Yeah.
because kids that are raised like that, for example, where the mom is like, I can't lose you, I don't ever want you to leave, like I
Yeah.
don't want you to go to college, da, 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 da. It just it kind of creates this like weird thing within the child of like they're either going to
Yeah.
be super sheltered and like be scared to do anything, or they're going to be like, F you, like I never want to talk to you
Yeah.
again, I'm cutting you off because you smother me,
Right.
and like you're super controlling, and like I want nothing to do with that. So it's like kind of
Yeah.
usually like one or the other.
Is that kind of like a form of codependency?
Yes,
Like,
for sure. For sure. And like sometimes moms, I say I'm picking on moms, but it could be dads too. Um, but like sometimes moms, like say they have that anxious attachment with the husband, and the
mhm,
husband like comes home from work, doesn't speak, just drinks his beer, ignores her. She just tries and tries and tries to like, see me, see me, see me. And he just ignores her. Eventually, she will detach from him and reattach to the child, um,
wow.
and try to get her needs met from the kid.
From the kid.
And that's
Wow.
where avoidant attachment is born.
Wow, that just brought up another question. Well, I know there's a lot of misconceptions that people have when it comes to like toxic relationships, abuse, or codependency. People have like a lot of misconceptions. Or what would you say is a misconception that people have about any of this? Toxic relationships, abusive relationships, or even attachment styles. What are some things that people kind of misconstrue?
Yeah, I would say honestly, like the thing that I've seen the most is like the whole narcissist stuff getting thrown around. Because, and I'm not saying like there are narcissistic people out there. We all actually are a little bit. I view narcissism on a spectrum.
Yeah.
But like most people you come across are not narcissists, like diagnosable narcissists.
Right.
And even if they were, I have so much compassion for people who are narcissistic, and I know that can like piss some people off, but like anyone who walks in my office, I'm like, I can see them, and how much pain they're in, and I understand why they do what they do. They have very good reasons for that, and they're protecting themselves. That's all narcissism is. It's a self-preservation, coping
mechanism,
adaptation from their childhood. Imagine what kind of life they would have had. They had to have to have to boost themselves so much and ignore everyone else's needs and emotions around them.
Wow.
I like to not have empathy like that. Like,
yeah,
you got to go through a lot to experience that. And I'm not talking about necessarily trauma, but it could be more how you're making sense of the world around you as you're growing up, and how you're making sense of who you are, where you fit in the world, your worth, your value, your lovability, your capability. That's what gets defined in your childhood, like before you're even 8 years old.
Wow.
It's like kind of locked in of how you view yourself, generally speaking. And I say locked in, kind of like it can definitely adjust over time, but most of the time it's like locked in. But so the narcissist stuff, it gets thrown around. It's almost like cathartic to like just throw everything out on this one person of like blaming it all on them. That's fine, but like there's a reason you chose them.
Yes.
There's a really good reason you chose them. There's a reason why you stayed with them, and there's a reason you're talking shit about them now. It's all coming from a place of pain within you that you need to look at and heal. Because there's a difference between like saying, oh, my ex is a total narcissist, versus like, yeah, my ex and I, like, we just really didn't work out. Like, he definitely had his own stuff going on.
Right.
Healed versus not healed.
Yeah. You can definitely you can see the huge difference between those two statements.
Right.
And when it comes to narcissistic partners and things like that, because I've, like you said, everyone says that they deal with it, but people that actually do deal with it, because some people actually, like you said, are diagnosed. What does it look like to heal from something like that when you actually walk away and you're trying to I guess pick up the pieces after that? What would be some advice to the viewers that might be fresh out of a relationship like that, and now they're trying to make sense of everything, heal and grow? What would be some good advice for them?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a process. Like if you are in a toxic relationship, violent relationship, abusive relationship, it takes so much courage and strength to walk away from that. And even the way that I walked away from mine, I was pulled away and got my strength through someone else at the time. But it doesn't really matter. Like once you find yourself out and you can actually like look back and observe, like, oh my God, what happened there? And you start to look at the cycles and like, why did I do that? And like genuinely ask yourself from a curious place of like, why did I act that way? Why did I go back? Why did I choose them again? But not in a way of like shaming yourself, but like
Yeah.
genuinely asking these questions. You have damn good reasons why you went back. You have damn good reasons why you stayed. Um, Unfortunately, though, like the consequence of that is that it kept hurting you over time. Um,
Hmm.
and a lot of time, your partner didn't intentionally, like, it didn't start that way intentionally most of the
Right.
time. I can't speak for everyone, but most couples that I interact with, it's like both sides are just very misunderstood, and it just gets blown way out of proportion when they end up in a place of like violence, or it escalates to that level. And so when you finally get your way out, it's a grieving process. And
Wow.
don't beat yourself up if you actually crave that relationship still, or at least parts of
Mm.
the relationship, because not all of it was bad. Um,
Right.
there's good reasons why you stayed. So um, definitely work on yourself through, like, if you don't go to therapy, like look up some like self-help stuff, like attachment based books, like attachment styles, attachment stuff, can give you a lot of your answers of like, holy shit. I actually have a really good book, You're the One You've Been Waiting For. There we go.
I like the title of that.
Yeah. And it's by Richard Schwartz, Dick Schwartz. He created one of the therapies that I use with my clients, but it is the best couples book I've ever read. It's geared for couples to read, not therapists to read.
Right.
Um, and it'll really break down why you got caught in those cycles and how to heal from them.
What was the name of that one more time?
You're the one you've been waiting
You're
for.
the one you've been waiting for. What would be something that you would say to people, someone that is still in that relationship, they're trapped, quote unquote, they feel like, maybe their partner actually is physically abusive. They might not really think that they have a means to leave because maybe there's kids involved, or maybe they're, the husband or boyfriend is the provider and she doesn't have any way to leave. Or she hasn't seen a healthy relationship, so she doesn't even
Yeah.
know what that's supposed to look like. What would be something that you would say to someone like that that's listening?
So the official answer is like, there's shelters, there's domestic violence shelters near you, guaranteed. Call 211. I don't know if it's the same in California, but
Hmm.
Florida, pretty sure 211 is like, you can get your resources there. But like a lot of people in these relationships, they think they think they're alone in that, or they're the only ones going through that experience.
Hmm.
And so even if you can find like an anonymous group virtually, or something like that, where you can kind of protect your identity,
Yeah.
or just like post anonymously in whatever groups, to just get some support. Because like I said, in that relationship that I was in, it was not physically abusive, but it was certainly verbally abusive. And
Probably
I
emotionally.
absolutely, and I now I know I had the strength, but at the time I did not feel like I had the strength, and I also didn't have the eyes to see fully.
Right.
So to have support from your community, or from other, people, even men, who find themselves in abusive relationships, because that
Yeah.
does happen.
Yeah.
Um,
People don't think it does.
yeah, and there's a lot of shame around that, because the a lot of the reasons why people stay are because they think there's something wrong with them, and they need to change something about themselves to like make that person treat them different. Um,
Right.
but the reason that person's treating you that way has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them and their own stuff and
Yeah.
their own pain that they need to work on. And sometimes the most powerful step you can take is by leaving with love, versus leaving with resentment.
Wow.
You don't have to hate them to leave them. If you set boundaries from a place of love for yourself and love for them and love for the kids, that's where really healthy choices get made.
Yeah.
Versus setting boundaries through fear or setting boundaries through anger. That's when it escalates and then doesn't really stick.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
yeah, and often when you walk away from a place of love, that's when that person may actually reflect and identify like, oh shit, I'm responsible for this. I need to change. Or because you staying there is not actually going to change them.
Yeah.
Because that's something they have to do themselves.
That's amazing advice. I think that a lot of people really do stay because they feel like, oh, well, maybe I deserve this, or maybe they'll get better over time and maybe they'll change. And sometimes you leaving is the change. Sometimes that's what they needed because for some people, but not every situation.
You're setting an example of like what their parent never set for them.
Right.
Like, I'm holding you accountable for these actions. Like, that's what a good parent does. Like, not saying you're their parent, but kind of you get in that position sometimes.
Right. Me, I was a textbook people pleaser. So, to end something like that and to have the other person upset with me or thinking that I'm the villain, that was not okay in my reality. But realizing that, now I look back, like now that I left, the person, she's grown a lot. I don't know if she's changed really, but she's grown a lot just from me removing myself and like, hey, I'm not dealing with any of that, and I know that I deserve better. And I found exactly what I was looking for and learned that I actually did deserve. But I wouldn't have really ever been able to do that if I stayed.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
This has been a great episode. We have some really good talks, and we definitely. Whenever you want to do another one, let me know.
This is fun. Thanks.
And for anyone that is interested in booking with you or learning more about you, where can everyone find you?
I have Instagram, Facebook mostly. I only see clients in Florida right now, but I am coming out with a couples course for military and first responders specifically. Because man, they need the help. But I will be putting out more courses after that. But it's valorhealingtherapy.com, Valor Healing on Instagram, Valor Healing on Facebook.
Awesome. So I'll have all that stuff down here for everyone. And do you have any final words or any motivation, any inspirational things you'd like to say to the viewers before you go?
Shoot, if you stuck through this long, good for you. That already says like how much you're trying to. The fact that you even watched this in the first place says there's something there that's inside of you that's like, all right, either you're watching this for a friend or for yourself, but you're really wanting to do some deeper work. And some people just don't know how or where to go, how to find the answers to that. And so I hope you got a lot out of this. And I'm so grateful that you watched to the end. This isn't easy stuff to talk about. It takes a lot of courage and strength and awareness to put yourself out there in that way, to watch all of this and to hear other people's perspectives. And thanks, Jalen, for having me. This is, I had a great time and divulged a lot about myself, but I view my past experiences as a tool to help people, learn from my mistakes or from my experiences. And I don't view them as my own. They're just for everybody.
I think that's really how it should be. Anything that we deal with in life, if we can find that, find the other side of it, find the positive side, the lesson to be learned from it, and then share it with others. What I've learned is a lot of people can be dealing with some of the same things that you're dealing with, and you don't know that you could have just helped someone with a breakthrough. So I think it's huge that you came on here on Elevated Minds, and we talked about all these different things, and I hope that whoever's listening, hope that this helped, and hope this is the first step to you being able to change your life for the better. and to start to create the type of life you want and the relationship that you really want, because that's really what it's all about, and that's what makes life really sweet.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, no problem. Everyone, thank you for watching. Stay elevated.